you like electronic music? It's all around us today, like the oxygen in the air we breathe, from the top of the pops to the oddest sounds of the underground. But from where and when did it originate? 1980s England? What about 1970s Germany? Could it be 1960s America? 1950s Canada, perhaps? Surely no earlier than 1940s Egypt. And yet, here we are. If you're interested in discovering exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes, tune into SynKult every other Tuesday from 10 to midnight for a vista of electronic sound from the field's pioneers to its current cutting edge, all placed in historical and cultural context by me, your guide, DJ Victor Alls. From musique concrète to minimal wave, space rock to speed garage, acid house to ambient, you'll find it all on SynKult. Good evening and welcome to SynKult. As usual, I'm your host, DJ Victor Alls, here to guide you through an eclectic selection of electronic music from across the ages. To begin the night, a foray into the world of early Argentine electronic music, or more specifically, the compositions of Hilda de Anda. Born in 1925, de Anda is of that first wave of Latin American electronic musicians who cut their teeth studying and conducting research at European and American centers for new music. This included the GRM in Paris, under the tutelage of Pierre Schaeffer, the RAI in Rome, studying alongside the likes of John Cage, and the famed Darmstadt summer courses under the tutelage of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen and Pierre Boulez. De Anda had been itinerant for most of her early professional life, often touring internationally as a conductor, though she returned to Argentina to teach from 1967 to 71, and then again from late 1975 onwards. She also has one of those online profiles that kind of drops off the face of the earth after the 1990s. I believe de Anda is still alive right now, or at least was as of 2021, and will turn 100 later this year, but my usual sources have been exhausted. For instance, I have a digital copy of the 5th edition of Tom Holmes's seminal Electronic and Experimental Music, Technology, Music, and Culture. It's usually an authoritative and near-exhaustive source for this sort of esoteric knowledge, but it only mentions de Anda a few times in passing. The internet pointed me towards Switched On, the dawn of electronic sound by Latin American women, edited by Luis Alvarado and Alejandra Cardenas, but it was released last March and I can't find a scan online and don't know if buying another $28 music coffee table book is a wise financial decision for me at the present moment. If any of you happen to know Hilda de Anda, please reach out to me via email. I'd be happy to have her on the show. In any case, from what I can determine, this next piece, titled Después el Silencio, or Then the Silence, was composed in 1975 and 76 while de Anda was at the SICMAT in Buenos Aires. It was released in 1981 by the Uruguayan record label Tacuabe in Volume 6 of their Música Nueva Latinoamérica series. It makes brilliant use of musique concrète style tape arrangements and effects alongside a bunch of oscillator madness. Here is Hilda de Anda's composer's statement from a 1977 performance of the piece that has been Google translated from Spanish to English by yours truly. Quote, "It was entirely conceived and realized in response to a very subjective and personal need for expression. For this reason, at least for the person who composed it, in this composition the sounds themselves, the sound structure, the timbral combinations, blends or juxtapositions, and prevailing over all of this, the expressive climate, emotional if you will, are more important than any explanation or technical consideration that can be made of it." End quote. I guess this is kind of an against interpretation argument. Let the music flow over you, don't think about it too much in an analytical lens. And by the way, the bed music for tonight's show, that is the music you're hearing right now, is from Sarah Devacci's 2022 album, Two Sisters. Now, onto the program. That was Hilda Dianda's 1976 composition, Después el Silencio, or Then the Silence. Before we go any further, I'd like to remind you that Freeform Portland is an all-volunteer station, and that we rely on listeners like you to keep our rent paid, lights on, and transmitters alight, beaming wonderful music and chatter, like what you're hearing right now, to wherever you may be listening. So please, please, please visit freeformportland.org and hit that blue donate button to give us a one-time donation of $50 or maybe $75 to keep this musical dream alive. Our current goal is $8,000, which really isn't a lot. As you can see, we aren't Scrooge McDucking on your greenbacks or buying the station bathroom a gold-plated toilet, but we do need a few of your green bucks to sustain the station. And with that, on to this next piece by Crystal Bell Scrode, the stage name and solo musical project of Deanna Rogerson, an occasional member of Nurse with Wound. Less known is Rogerson's live act with post-punker and licensed psychotherapist Jill Westwood called Fist F-Word. Their live show features a female dominatrix ritually humiliating men, pissing on them and tying them to chairs, all to a soundtrack of extreme noise and sound collage. Yeah, sure, why not? Slightly less not safe for work is Rogerson's 1986 solo album, As Crystal Bell Scrode, titled Belle de Jour, after the excellent Louis Buñuel film of the same name. The track, The Demon Flower from Belle de Jour, sounds like a violently depressurizing, derelict spaceship in typical industrial fashion.
Isis unveiled on the Okinawa. I am the star that riseth from the sea, the twilight sea. All tides are mine and answer unto me. Tides of men's souls and dreams and destiny. Isis veiled on the Abenaki. Lo, I receive the gifts thou bringest me. Life and more life in fullest ecstasy. I am the moon that draweth thee. I am the waiting earth that calleth thee. Come unto me, great Pan, come unto me.
You were listening to The Demon Flower by Crystal Bell Scrode from her 1986 album, Belle de Jour. Following it up is one more piece on the experimental side, the one and only LP from a live electronics group calling themselves the Lapetites. It's titled Before the Libretto. They formed in 2001 at the legendary Tonic Art Space in Lower Manhattan as an all-women experimental electronics collective. As founding member Cafe Matthews put it, quote, "In the middle of the festival, they had programmed only men except me. I organized an evening that brought together women artists to play together. Uke Mori, Zena Parkins, Marina Rosenfeld, legends. We'd never done that before. It was phenomenal. I wanted to create this meeting space where we could explore musical ideas together. Les Lapetites is more of a communal space than a music group in the strict sense of the word." End quote. Elaine Radiga was another one of the founding members back in 2001, but has since moved on to other projects. At 93 years old, Radiga is one of the few pioneers of French electronic music still alive and practicing music. She's been constantly active since the 50s and was the first master of the ARP 2500 synthesizer. Here's Aiko Kuka from Before the Libretto by the Lapetites. I'm 90% sure Aiko Kuka samples Tengu the Long-Nosed Goblin from Osamu Kiyajima's excellent 1976 progressive rock album Benzaiten.
影のが雪になったカブトムシが少なくなったコウモリが土に消えた田んぼとかかしが少なくなった 宙と社会の和解を祈る山がそびえ海は走り空は青く地面は優しくそれだけでいいのですそれだけでいいのですそれだけでいいの
That was Aikokuka by the Lapetites from their one and only 2005 album, Before the Libretto. They're still active today, but exclusively as a live act, so it's good to have this one album of theirs. Before going any further, I'd like to say once again that Freeform Portland is doing a fundraising drive. If ad-free, independent radio bringing you thoughtfully curated music you'll hear nowhere else is something you enjoy, and why wouldn't you? You've tuned into the right place. Visit freeformportland.org and hit that donate button if you please. We suggest $50 or whatever you can afford. While you're there, help yourself to some sweet new Freeform merch, hot off the presses and designed in-house by our wonderful DJs. Buying a t-shirt or hoodie also goes a long way to keeping the rent paid and lights on here at Freeform. And next, for a new release, the highly anticipated solo debut of Canadian composer and multi-instrumentalist Laurie Torres, primarily known for her work as one quarter of the folk rock band Folly and the Hunter. It always feels strange to call ambient music innovative, because the genre is supposed to be relatively unassuming, but I would say that Torres' solo debut, Après Coup, fits the bill. Please enjoy Feu Fuyant from Après Coup, a susurrating rush and roar of microtonal glitch and crackle, woven through drifting, minimalism-inspired piano chords. You heard Feu Follon from the album Après Coup by the one and only Montreal-based Laurie Torres. Stellar solo debut, and I look forward to hearing whatever Torres does next. If MIDI piano is also your cup of tea, here's something great from a little closer to home by the one and only Portland-born and raised Ramona Andra Langley. Langley has used many aliases over the years. The most famous of these aliases are Vectroid and Macintosh Plus. Both are synonymous with a vaporwave movement, if you can even call it a movement, of the early 2010s. One of the less well-known Langley releases is Prism Corp Virtual Enterprises, under which she released her 2013 albums Clear Skies and Home TM. Unlike a lot of vaporwave, Home TM is less a quiet critique of consumer capitalism and more a proof-of-concept album, where Langley makes sly, video game-esque MIDI covers of obscure pop songs, sometimes circuitously sampling the originals. It's a style of music I associate most with afternoons spent playing the Wii as a child over at friends' houses. We weren't really allowed video games at home. This is Perfect Way, a cover of the Scritti Politti song, with wonderfully retromanic gated reverb to match. That was Perfect Way by Prism Corp Virtual Enterprises, one of the many aliases of Portland's own Ramona Andra Langley. Langley was a Wunderkind, releasing her first music online at age 14 and going viral with Floral Shop in 2011 at age 19. It was a similar story for Russian electronic producer and DJ Mirabella Karyanova, who goes by the alias Ishome. She started producing music at age 14 and released her first debut full-length album Confessions in 2013 at the age of 23. Unfortunately, the album and her haven't received much traction. The only notable review I can find online is a glowing piece from Sputnik Music that's mostly about how the album slips out from under any genre tags you'd care to throw at it. They're right, actually. Discogs classifies Confessions under minimal, house, breakbeat, ambient, and downtempo. The neckbeard nerds over at Rate Your Music classify it as future garage, ambient techno, post-dubstep, whatever that means, dub techno, and IDM. I dunno, man, you can call Confessions whatever you like. Maybe someday I'll give up and dispense with genre tags entirely, like some of the older and wiser DJs here at Freeform, but the stubborn, wannabe academic in me rebels at the notion. For now, please enjoy Tetra 94, Parts 1 and 2 by Ishome from her 2013 album Confessions. You were listening to Tetra 94 Part 2, preceded by Tetra 94 Part 1, both by Ishome from her 2013 album Confessions. Brilliant album. I said earlier that the album taken as a whole defies genre tags, but the most defensible genre tag I'd throw at these two tracks in isolation is future garage, which itself is a pretty capacious term. A lot of her more recent work is filed under the alias Shadow Wax, so consider checking it out if so inclined. I'd also take a moment to plug the station and all the awesome volunteers who work month in and month out to keep it going. Nobody's getting paid here at Freeform, including our engineers. We just do it because we love music and the building community around it. If you think Freeform Portland should stay on the dial for the next 5 years, 10 years, and more, please visit our website, freeformportland.org, and click that blue donate button for a sum of $50 or whatever you can afford. It's the gift that keeps on giving to your hungry ears. Skipping ahead to the latest album from Indiana-based producer Jalen, who has been sharpening the bleeding edge of dance-oriented electronic music ever since her 2015 debut Dark Energy exploded what the, at that point rapidly globalizing, genre of footwork could be. Her 2017 album Black Origami graced the top of many individual lists, drawing comparisons in scope and inventiveness to what Aphex Twin was doing in the 1990s. Her 2023 album Perspectives, and collaboration with Third Coast Percussion, earned her a finalist position for the Pulitzer Prize in Music. Not content to rest on her significant laurels, Jalen's latest album, Akoma, from last March, is probably the only album in existence to feature both Bjork and Philip Glass as sidekicks. As a critic or commentator, it's easy to rave about genre mashing and use that as a replacement for critical engagement with music, but it's more relevant here because Jalen actually instrumentalizes this as a way to keep her listeners and critics guessing, stating, quote, "People laugh at me when I say, oh, classical and trap music are very much one and the same. The arts are very related," end quote. She continues, saying, quote, "I have a mantra that I call CPU, clean, precise, and unpredictable. I love the audience, but before it gets to them, I have to surprise myself. If I can do that, it means that I fulfilled its purpose," end quote. Now that's a mission statement I can respect and is worthy of the Aphex Twin comparison. Here's Offset from Akoma by Jalen. I'm DJ Victor Alls, and this is SynKult, coming to you from Freeform Portland, KFFP-LP Portland, KFFD-LP Beaverton, and on the web at freeformportland.org. Now, back to the program. You heard Osset by Jaylin from her terrific 2024 album Akoma, released on Planet Mu last March. Let's cool down for a moment from all that hot and heavy syncopation with a delicate surgical swing of 17 Celsius from the album Whatever the Weather by the artist Whatever the Weather. Who is this mysterious Whatever the Weather, you may ask? Well, it's none other than the alias London-based producer Lorraine James uses to release her ambient-oriented experiments. The conceit is simple but elegant. Each track describes a different temperature. In so doing, James joins the long lineage of environmentally attuned ambient that touches back on Law School, Biosphere, Brian Eno, and electronic music pioneers like Luke Ferrari and Wendy Carlos's criminally overlooked Sonic Seasonings from 1970, amongst many, many others. Of course, I say this preamble and now leave you with the least ambient track from Whatever the Weather, which is really more precision ambient techno similar to peak oil signees like Top-Down Dialectic and Paperclip Minimizer than straight ambient. Here's 17 Celsius, which translates to a slightly nippy 63 degrees Fahrenheit for Yankees like myself. Looking forward to that weather in a few months. Right now it's pretty chilly. That was 17 Celsius by Lorraine James, released under her alias Whatever the Weather on Ghostly International back in 2022. If you liked what you heard, be aware that Lorraine James released Whatever the Weather 2 just last week, which takes on a decidedly more urban flair through its use of street-level field recordings. So much electronic music has urban roots, including the Motor City sound of Detroit techno, which some mythmakers and boosters try to uphold as a craggy, isolated innovation, but in reality bleeds into the greater New York, Chicago, Detroit nexus that gave us so many unique styles of electronic music, notably garage, house, and techno in that order for the purposes of tonight. Techno producer Kelly Hand's sound is a great example of this fact, of this mixing. In her own words from a 2016 Resident Advisor interview, quote, "My background, I would say, mostly comes from Chicago and New York, even though I'm Detroit born and raised," end quote. Known as the First Lady of Detroit techno, Hand, who sadly passed in 2021, is notable in that her sound is audibly flavored by each vertex of that Tri-City area. First, New York. Hand initially discovered electronic music not in her hometown of Detroit, but in New York City, most notably the legendary Paradise Garage, which she and her friends frequented in their late teens and early 20s. A Larry Levan superfan, she would check to see if Levan was spinning before deciding to drive out to attend. Levan inspired Hand to learn to DJ and produce music. She procured as many of the records he spun as she could, learning both crafts from the comfort of her home with a modest setup of a mixer, synthesizer, keyboard, Atari, and Roland R8 drum machine. Second, Chicago. Hand reminisced about attending some of the earliest Frankie Knuckle DJ sets in Belmont Rocks Park in Chicago, around the same time she was living it up in Paradise Garage. Hand also attended nights at Ron Hardy's legendary Music Box nightclub in downtown Chicago, and cites Chicago house producers and DJs like Maurice Joshua, Ron Trent, and DJ Funk as inspirations. Third, Detroit. Hand identified her approach to Detroit techno primarily with Ken Collier and his legendary Club Heaven nightclub, a hub for house and techno as well as a locus of the city's gay nightlife. That's right, the queer cutting-edge and dance-oriented electronic music isn't limited to house and garage. Anyway, Hand was there the night Club Heaven opened in 1984, befriended Collier, and began her residency at Detroit Club Zippers several years later at his recommendation. Collier's mentorship was another reason Hand got into music production. After Collier, it was Detroit's underground resistance crew, in particular her friendship with Jeff Mills, that led to Hand cutting her first record in 1990. When asked about the unique Tri-City swing in her sound in the same 2016 Resident Advisor interview, Hand replied, quote, "It's just part of who I am, I guess. I like to have that swing. I don't know where it comes from. It's just natural. For me, house has gotta have swing. It's big in the Chicago house sound, as you'll notice. There's a certain sound from Chicago that's very swingish, and that's why the sound of Chicago is slightly different from a lot of other house." End quote. Interestingly, despite her mixed influences, in a 2010 interview with E-Zine Gridface, Hand upholds strict genre divisions between Chicago house and Detroit techno, saying, quote, "What irritates me, though, is some people call techno house and house techno, and the correct terminology for the genre is not presented correctly worldwide. I am seeing this everywhere, except out of New York and Chicago, where it all started, and Detroit, for techno, of course. My thing is, if you don't know what house and what is techno, please do not categorize or phrase the term. It's confusing to people, the industry, and the world," end quote. I'm kind of reminded of that old 4chan joke where some guy's saying, if you don't know the difference between house and garage, please leave. And then some guy responds, "House is where I live, garage is where my car lives." Anyway, make of Hand's distinction what you will. Perhaps Hand is just sick of tech house and clueless punters at clubs. I've got 2 Kelly Hand tracks for you tonight, both released under her main alias K Hand. The first is the title track from her 1995 album On a Journey, the first record pressed on Berlin's K7 Records, according to Discogs. The second is the first of 4 untitled tracks from her 2014 Project 5 EP.
caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, wine on ice, chauffeur drive, caviar, whatever you like. Candlelights, 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 candlelights.
That was the first untitled track from K-Hand's 2014 Project 5 EP. Before it was On a Journey, the title track from K-Hand's debut LP from 1995. Before returning to the grooves, a short PSA. Freeform Portland is supported by listeners like you, and I mean that in a much more direct sense than NPR does. We're a tiny, 100% non-profit community station located out of East Portland, which means nobody here is getting paid, including the committee chairs and engineers. If you like what we do, please consider heading over to our website at freeformportland.org and clicking the donate button for a gift of $50, $75, or whatever you can afford. If you'd prefer to support us on a monthly basis, check us out on Patreon. There are a variety of tiers that come with a variety of perks, including stickers, monthly member-exclusive mixtapes, and even t-shirts. Every dollar goes towards paying rent, paying for electricity, maintaining our equipment, and station improvements. For instance, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but one of the projects our operations committee is working on and I'm pretty excited for is setting up a live performance space in the studio for local acts to play on and off air. Pretty exciting, right? Now, back to the program. Some more techno with a track from Rose and Polygona's 2024 album Dermatology titled Hamia. You heard Hemia by Rose and Polygona from their 2024 album Dermatology. Sticking to the techno groove for a few songs longer, this next piece is from the Russian-born, Berlin-based producer Elena Shorkova, who goes under the alias Sola in the business. She's been active since 2016 and dropped her first album, Genuine Silk, in April 2020. Inverted Audio describes Genuine Silk as, quote, one of the more thought-provoking and powerful albums to be released this year, a wandering soul, shape-shifting adrift, and plush landscapes, end quote. I don't think that's hyperbole. Genuine Silk just might be a masterpiece of 2020's techno that balances dance floor beats with an ambient, gauzy, and organic approach to home listening electronica that harkens back less to early 90s IDM or late 90s ambient techno, but gestures towards the future. Delayed Magazine describes the album as, quote, the ideal companion for our quarantine days, which will also stand the test of time and accompany us years after we finish quarantining, whenever that may be, end quote. It's 2025 now, so I guess they were correct. Here's Shadows on the Wall by Sola from her 2025 album, Genuine Silk. You were listening to Shadows on the Wall by Sola, something like that, from her 2020 album, Genuine Silk. While writing this script, I learned that Sola released a second LP last September titled Dark Portrait. I just added it to my new music backlog. More techno is next, now from the New Yorker Eden Aurelius. I first discovered her music through a piece on Bandcamp Daily last year covering what remains of Glasgow's independent electronic music scene that isn't being gutted by rising rents, economic decay, and the streaming economy. Aurelius released her 2024 debut EP Plateau on the Glasgow independent label Cochlear. Bandcamp Daily describes the EP as, quote, a beautiful and tempered take on dub techno. There are echoes and glimmers of the dance floor here, but they are warm and gentle, like that final serotonin glow on the bus ride home. Plus the fact that this release comes with a remix from dub techno trio of the moment Pure Link makes it an essential grab, end quote. Here's Want To from Eden Aurelius' 2024 Plateau EP. That was Want To from Edie Nerelis' 2024 debut EP Plateau. Definitely a new voice to watch and a massive flex to get a remix from PureLink on your first release. Final piece of techno for tonight will be Sto Domingo Dub from Melodias Venenosas. It's the first album by Chile-born, New York-based DJ and classically trained producer Alejandra Iglesias, aka Dinky or Miss Dinky. Dinky is one of those producers who first made a name for herself in 1990s New York and Berlin as a DJ before taking a crack at production beginning in 2000. Melodias Venenosas from 2001 contains a varied assortment of listening-oriented abstract techno. Just because I wanted to share it, here's what Dinky had to say in a 2009 interview regarding her classical influences. Quote, "I'm not sure if I take these two great artists, Bach and Reich, as teachers for my productions. They are for me more a source of musical inspiration. I learned studio techniques from engineers and music composition from musicians like them. For me, Bach is a composition, chord progress, tempo changes, harmonic expression. Reich is simplicity, conceptualism, minimalism, hypnotism, too many things to name, I guess." End quote. And on to Sto Domingo Dub by Dinky, an offbeat bite of dub techno from her 2001 album, Melodias Venenosas. That was Sto Domingo Dub by Dinky from her 2001 album, Melodias Venenosas. One final track before I end the show for tonight, but first to address something that many of you have been likely picking up on if you've been tuned in for a while. That's right, every artist featured tonight, barring a few female-male collaborations, identifies as a woman. Not mentioning that, until now, has been an intentional creative decision. I've been thinking about mundaneness recently and about how the true endpoint for progressive cultural politics isn't ruthless pursuit of representation, which can very quickly become tokenism, but that those same identity categories bleed into the background. There's this 2015 interview translated from German with Austrian producer and DJ Claire Moto that I've been thinking about for years. In it, Moto rails against the term DJing, grumbling, quote, "Something I often hear is, 'You're my favorite DJing,' or 'You're my favorite female DJ,' as if being a woman were its own subgenre. They then categorize it because all those who say that obviously have a favorite male DJ. I hear that about favorite female DJ very often. I find that difficult. It's well-intentioned, of course, but it shows how male-dominated the perception still is. I find that truly horrible. You're just concentrating and want to do your job as well as possible." End quote. Tokenizing, platforming marginality for its own sake versus granting that mundaneness occurs in other ways in the culture, particularly on a scene-by-scene basis. On the question of artistic self-presentation, feminist cultural theorist Tammy Gedier remarks in an interview a few years ago that there's a big difference between mainstream and specialist electronic music scenes. In mainstream scenes, artists, especially female DJs and producers, have to essentially sell sex to make it financially, donning a backless catsuit and motorcycle helmet before showing up at the DJ decks. Charlotte DeWitt's public persona is a good example of this. Obviously, I'm not criticizing her skill as a DJ and producer, which are both self-evident. In specialist scenes, women have far more license to just be as shabby as their male colleagues, say perform and do photo shoots in no makeup and a sweat-stained Night Force Records hoodie if they prefer. When it comes to the culture on the other side of the DJ deck, British music journalist and critic Emma Warren echoed something similar in an interview with Georgina Cook for Georgina Cook's book Drums of the South, about how safety is less of a concern for women in specialist scenes, because people are there for the music, not to find dates or hookups, and women don't feel obligated to dress up. I could waffle on about this for a while, but I think we're running out of time. The point is that I intend to frame tonight's episode not as platforming women in electronic music, all caps, in a tokenizing, ostentatious manner, but simply an ordinary SynKult episode where I play a variety of great electronic music that this time just so happens to be made by women. I'm not making some crappy 90s post-feminist claim that sexist injustices have been righted and inequities don't exist. I'm making a prefigurative gesture towards a future where both these things are actually the case, and in the meantime a gesture towards a non-tokenizing, mundane present. Let's close out the night with Bed of Roses from Schleimer K's 1981 self-titled album. Schleimer K was a UK-based minimal wave act consisting of Billy Duncan, Dominique Breaths, Mark Benjamin, and Michael Wolfen. Cross-gender collaborations are important in the pursuit of mundanity. Women may hold up half the sky, but just like men, they don't do it in isolation. As always, this has been me, your host, DJ Victor Alls. Please enjoy, and good night.